What happened the most to me is I developed a little faster, and instead of feeling like I was beautiful, very quickly I felt like I was being sexualized.
But just like growing up as a girl, like this want and this need to like stay looking young, like as long as
Yeah.
possible. And like the day that you get boobs is like the day that your life is going to change.
Welcome to Season 2 of Students of Mind, the podcast where we aim to normalize conversations about mental health. Last season, we connected you with experts in the field of mental health to provide an understanding of topics and illnesses that may not have been easily accessible. This season, we will continue our learning journey together by not only speaking to experts, but also by listening to the voices and stories of real people who are living, surviving, and even thriving, while also facing challenges with their mental health in their everyday life. This season, we want to hear your stories to get the full truth of what it's like to manage one's mental health and navigate living with mental illness. My name is Jayde, and today we have a bonus episode featuring some of the conversation from the episode on Black women's body image in predominantly white spaces. In this short conversation, we talked about what it was like as Black middle schoolers to start interacting with boys and getting into romantic relationships. We also talked about the experience of being a girl who was starting to physically develop into a woman and the anxieties and pressures that come with that. I hope by listening to the show, you're able to learn something new and gain some encouragement through hearing our experts and listening to the journeys of our guests. However, this show is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your mental health professional or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have about your condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on the Students of Mind podcast. Today's episode features Wanjiko and Jordyn, who were in the episode called Navigating Body Image and Mental Health as a Black Woman in Predominantly White Spaces. What you will hear today is a portion of the conversation that was not in the episode, where we talk about the dynamic of dating as a Black girl while attending predominantly white institutions and the challenges, fears, and anxieties that arise as young girls begin physically developing into women. Okay, so I just mentioned me and Wanjiko had a friend group that was predominantly white. In middle school, they dated, or most people, including the Black girls in our friend group, dated, but I didn't, and I think that kind of made me feel ostracized, and there's just a sense that none of the guys at the schools that we would like interact to wanted to look at me, have anything to do with me. And then, sorry, Jordyn, what were you saying?
So personally, I didn't date in high school. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that part of it was because subconsciously I was like, there's nothing for me there's nothing for me over there.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing over there. And that was very like true. Like that continued into high school. I felt like a lot of the Black guys didn't want to date the Black girls. They all wanted to date the white girls at Bryn Mawr. And that's echoes in the world. If you it kind of like it's we're not, sadly, like I love us, but like
Yeah.
like Black men don't always reach for Black women, and
Mm-hmm.
in a predominantly white school when there's so many other options, you definitely like they're not going to. And it's so I've seen all, I hate to say this, but I've seen all of these TikToks that kind of unwrap it, and it's because media, like Black guys are shown like from a young age that whiteness is the standard of beauty. And like even
Yeah.
now, like, I was sitting watching Victorious with my like roommate just now, and it's just like there's not one Black girl. Like what the heck? Like, and on any show, we're always like the little awkward best friend, or like, like
Yeah.
so sadly, like of course they're not gonna think that young Black women are attractive. because they don't see young Black women anywhere
Yeah.
and shown in a positive light. So subconsciously, of course, you're not going to, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, that definitely continued into high school. And now that I'm thinking about it, that's probably why I didn't date, is because
Yeah.
I didn't feel like there was an opportunity for me to date at that school.
And I think for the Black girls that did date, and I think Wanjiko, you can speak to this.
Barely.
Can you just talk about, because I know you and then the other Malia,
Yeah.
y'all dated in middle school, and I just wondered, because I was gonna say, like, there's like a certain type of Black girl that the boys catered or like wanted to date because they resembled like the white girls, but like that wasn't really the case. Like, y'all look completely different. Yeah, I don't know. I just wonder like what your experience was with that.
I would totally agree. Did not feel desired whatsoever. 90% of, especially dances were the ones that made me really be like, oh, these white guys don't want me. And even the Black guys, actually, what happened the most to me is I developed a little faster. And instead of feeling like I was beautiful, very quickly I felt like I was being sexualized. And there was one group chat that I remember getting a screenshot. There was something somebody posted before a J dance, and then there was a screenshot that somebody was talking about my body in it, and I was like, what? But same people who were like, they're not into Black girls, like they're just looking for the blonde-haired Becky. I did not feel desired. I guess I did date. I don't know how that happened. Like, genuinely, truly, it happened. We were dating for 2 months. It was a interesting experience, I would say, in the least. But I wouldn't say that was a real relationship whatsoever.
I don't think I consider any of that real in middle school.
Yeah.
No offense.
I don't consider anything real anymore. Now that I'm older, like I'm not even that old, but now that I'm 20, I look back at literally everything and I'm like, what? Like none of that matters.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. It's funny like how mature we felt we were when we were like, especially in middle school. So yeah, it's just funny. And I think it's interesting when you talk about how your body was sexualized. I remember that because you and Malia, both your bodies were sexualized by the boys, and not just even at that school, at all of the private schools, because of the mixers that we had. And I think just the nature of those mixers too, any girl who had any semblance of a mature body was sexualized by the guys there, which is a whole other topic. But yeah, that's interesting to kind of see. Like, we all three of us had different experiences with that.
I went to maybe one mixer, not by choice. My mom did not let me go. But now, like looking back, I kind of like resented that. I was like, I kind of wish that I was like able to go. But now, like looking back at myself, like I was not mature enough like to go and to be a part of that like at all. Can I say something that okay, this is kind of off
Of course.
topic.
No.
But I feel like when I like started to develop I kind of hated myself because I felt like for so long my identity was that I looked young. And that was like my self identity. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm Jordyn Jones. I look young. Like, and that's how I look. Like, and so when I stopped, like that stopped and I like got boobs or whatever, like I kind of had like a identity crisis. And I tried to, and I feel like I look back at all these like pictures of myself and I look awful. But at the time, I was like, okay, like I want to look young, but I look terrible. It's just like funny looking back at that like now because I wasn't happy, but I thought that everyone around me was happy because like that's how everyone like wanted me to look, like family and such. Like that's how everyone like
Mm,
wanted me to look. I feel like that's
mhm.
so like off topic, but just like growing up as a girl, like this want and this need to like stay looking young, like as long as
Yeah,
possible. And like the day that you get boobs, the day that you get a butt, the day that you get thighs is like the day that your life is gonna change. Like, and
yeah,
I felt that like constant pressure like all of the time that, oh, I don't want to grow up, like I don't want to look different, like I don't know, that's kind of
yeah.
off topic, but I just felt like that all the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, for me, the underlying stuff that relates to for me is, like, feeling like if I grow, I'll be noticed more, and the fear of
Mm,
being noticed, especially by, like, men, because that was scary. So, like, I felt like if I could stay, like, small and young looking, I wouldn't be noticed as much. And, like, it was, like, really a form of safety to be able to, like, continue to look that way. And then when you got older and you can't help it, it's like you feel, like, exposed.
that's so true. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I think that's something that, like, a lot of people deal with is just, like, a desire to, like, stay in a more juvenile body just because they feel like they'll be less targeted.
That's
Um,
I never thought about that. That's so
yeah.
true.
Mhm. Yeah, that's something, like, also when I got older and developed the eating disorder, that's something that came up for me too of, like, part of it, yeah, was, like, my wanting to be, like, smaller because I thought my head thought that looked better, but also wanting to be smaller so I could be seen less,
Mm,
and feeling like I took up too much space or just too much energy in people's lives, and wanting to, like, shrink myself as small as possible so I would be less of a burden or less of,
wow.
like, an annoyance in the lives around me. So yeah, I think that's not random at all. I think that that's, like, a theme that I've heard in a lot of people.
Yeah, that was like a really big issue for me for a really long time. Like I would pull up to Bryn Mawr wearing 5 bras. I wish I was kidding. Like I wish that I was being dramatic right now, but no, like I hated myself that much. Like I hated the fact that I had boobs that much. And
Yeah.
then I was afraid to go bra shopping. I was like, okay, like that's a sign of me growing up. Like I don't want to grow up, so I'm just going to like wear these training bras, but I'm gonna wear 7 of them because that somehow makes
It cancels it
like
out.
I don't know, like just like the stuff that I like that just like and now like when I talk to my friends and like even like sitting here talking to you all because I was an only child, I felt like it was just me that was like thinking these things. But now that I'm like talking to other like black women, it's just so comforting to know that it's not just you. Because yeah, you can talk to your mom about stuff, but there are some thoughts that you don't even want to bring up to your mom
Yeah.
because you're like, I don't want her to see me differently. Like you know
Mhm.
she won't, but you're afraid she will.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, it's really nice talking to other like girls and hearing that like that's it wasn't like just me like feeling that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to this short bonus episode of Students of Mind. I really wanted to share this portion of the conversation with you, even though I wasn't able to include it in the original episode a few weeks ago. I think what we talked about is the experience of so many young girls, so I hope this brings a sense of community and a feeling of being less alone if you are able to connect with what we talked about today. I want to say thank you again to Jordyn and Wanjiko for sitting down with me to have this conversation, and also for being so open and sharing some really vulnerable experiences for you all to hear. As always, our guests and the Students of Mind team's social media links will be listed in the description below. Thank you so much again for listening. I hope you learned something new or connected with something that was said today, and I'll see you next time.